Hello and welcome to the section 6.4 lecture. Today we're going to be talking about analyzing graphs, and one of the biggest things that's going to come up with that is this idea of a qualitative graph. So we're going to be on the lookout for that as we get going here. So the question for the day is, how can you describe a relationship given a graph and given a sketch of a graph given and sketch a graph given a description, sorry. So just kind of those two ideas back to back. The first little example here has us interpret graphs and try to figure out what's going on here. It says that a roller coaster park is open from May to October each year. The graph shows the number of visitors over its season, over that May to October range. Segment 1 shows that attendance, so segment 1 being this one right here, attendance during the opening weeks of the park stayed pretty constant. So there was just a steady number of visitors that showed up. What does segment 2 show? So this segment 2 right here, what does that show? Well, at a basic level, it shows an increase in number of visitors. And I think an easier way to look at this is to think of this visitors as number of visitors per day. They don't really say that on there, but it makes more sense to me to think about this as a number of visitors per day. Okay. So segment 2 shows a steady increase, and maybe even to say that it's a steady increase in number of visitors. So more people are coming every day, more people are showing up, and a steady increase of that amount of visitors every day. Based on the time frame, give a possible explanation for the change in attendance represented by segment 2. So why would the number of visitors increase? And thinking that here we have May and here we have October. So what could cause an increase? Well, and they even told us that segment 1 was the first few weeks. So what could cause an increase in segment 2? My thought is looking at like summer starts. So it's the start of summer. Maybe it's getting warmer out. Maybe there's people understanding that they don't have to go to school. Whatever we're looking at there, that could be like the start of summer. We don't know how long it is because they don't give us any units here, and that's the idea. We have to figure out what's going on. So I would say just that summer starts, real summer hits. Okay. Which segment of the graph shows a decreasing attendance, and give a possible explanation? Okay. Which segments show decreasing attendance? I would say 4 and 5. So 4 and 5. They show a decrease in attendance over time. Okay, so what are we looking at there? What could be the reason for that? Again, thinking of this is May and this is October, that kind of looks like, because it goes May, June, maybe July, maybe this is August, maybe somewhere around August, maybe even into September. I would say maybe that school starts. Okay, so you have less people going during the days because school started. Explain how the slope of each segment of the graph is related to whether attendance increases or decreases. So looking at slope, in segment 1 we have no slope. It's a 0 slope. And it's not going anywhere. Segment 2 and 3 are increasing, meaning on these two, they have a positive slope. On these two segments here, positive slope. On these two, they're decreasing or they have a negative slope. So it turns out that when you have a positive slope, that in this case, it means that attendance increases. So I would say positive slope. Increase in attendance. And then when you have a negative slope, we have a decrease in attendance. Okay. Let's move to the next page, see what we've got going on here. So now we want to look at more of these graphs. And again, these are called qualitative graphs in that they don't give us any kind of numbers. We're just looking for qualities that these graphs have, sort of characteristics that they show. It says here that Grace, Jet, and Mike are studying 100 words for a spelling bee. Grace learned by learning how to spell many words each day, but learned fewer and fewer words each day. Jet learned how to spell the same number of words each day. And then Mike started by learning how to spell only a few words each day, but then learned a greater number of words each day. Based on that information, whose graph is whose? Who matches up to A, B, and C? So what I would look at here is as number of words versus time. On this one, the graph is just steadily increasing. Which one of those three descriptions matches steady increasing? I would say that's Jet. Okay. Jet learned how to spell the same number of words each day. So as number of words increases, days increases. We see kind of a stair step of a linear function there. Okay. That one was probably the easy one because it was the only one that was straight. What about these other two? Which one? Let's focus on Grace's description. It says that she started by learning how to spell many words each day, but then learned fewer and fewer each day. Okay. So something that starts out really high and then slows down in how much it increases. Okay, that would be this one right here. She learned a lot, and every day she just learned a few less. So she overloaded herself, really got good at those, and then just slowly added to that. So this is going to be Grace. And then Mike started by learning how to spell only a few words each day. So he's working just a couple words, a couple more, and then learned a greater number each day. He's learning much more out here. So this is Mike. It says describe the progress represented by graph A, graph B, and graph C. We would say that graph A was I guess we need to look at them too. Graph A was a steady increase. Per day. Okay. Graph B, how would you describe that? So graph B shows shows a slow increase followed by a fast increase. Would be the best thing I could think of. So a slow increase followed by a fast increase. And then for C, I would say a fast increase followed by a slow increase. And then determine which graph represents which student. So we already did that. What would it mean if one of these graphs were slanted downwards? What would that mean in this scenario? So we have words and days. And what if the graph was slanted downwards? Really at any point. It would only mean one thing, that over days, words decreased. What's another way to say that? We would say that the student forgot words. Or let's say forgot how to spell. Okay. Let's look at this last one here. Here we want to sketch a graph for a situation. It says that Mrs. Sutton provides free math tutoring to her students every day after school. No one comes to the tutoring session for the first week of school. Over the next 2 weeks, the use of the tutoring service gradually increases. So it says to sketch a graph showing the number of students who use the tutoring service over the first 3 weeks of school. Okay. And again, we're kind of thinking about students per day. But this one's a little bit, I will say this graph is a little less qualitative because they actually give us numbers, making it the opposite of that would be quantitative, as in it gives a quantity. But for the first week, nobody shows up. Sorry, I tried to draw a straight line right along the x-axis there. Didn't do a very good job. I'm actually going to use straight lines anyways. I don't want that one. That one's a little bit too thick. Let's use that. Let's go with blue. So for the first week, nobody uses it. Okay. Over the next 2 weeks, so weeks 2 and 3, there's a steady increase. We don't know how many. We don't even care about how many. But there's a steady increase. Okay. Here it says Mrs. Sutton's students are told that they will have a math test at the end of the 5th week of school. How do you think this will affect the number of students coming to tutoring? Well, in the perfect world, my perfect world, if there's a math test coming up, there's going to be more people caring about how they do. That's always my goal. I would say that more students will use tutoring. And hopefully even I'm going to say here with even a steeper slope. So I'm anticipating with I'm actually going to level this one out a little bit so I can show a difference. I'm hoping that we get a steeper slope as more students, I tried to stay on kind of a straight line, but definitely not the same slope as this one. I was hoping for a little bit steeper. Considering your answer to B, sketch the graph of the number of students using the tutoring over the first 6 weeks of school. Okay. So this one's kind of tricky in that they add that 6th week in there. So for the first week, nobody used it. Weeks 2 and 3, there were some students that used it. I'm hoping that there's a big spike, but that's talking about the test was at 5 weeks, right? The test was here at 5 weeks. What do you think would happen to tutoring after that? Think to yourself. I would think there's probably going to be either a leveling off or a drop off. And I should say that a little bit differently. I don't know that it would go down. I guess it could go down. So definitely not as steep or steeper, I wouldn't think. I would think maybe a leveling off where that number of students decided to come back every day, or maybe a drop off. And they did say over 6 weeks, and I went all the way to 7. Okay. If Mrs. Sutton offers bonus credit to students who come to tutoring, how might this affect the number of students? Well, if you give extra credit, they will come. Probably more students will show up. I'll say will attend. Then how would your answer to question 3 affect the graph? I would say another section with a steep, I'm going to be a little bit more specific, a steep positive slope. Okay. All right, so I believe that's it for today. Last thing, we need a code word for the day. Qualitative for the type of graphs that we've been looking at. So your code word for the day is qualitative, talking about these qualitative graphs. Have a good day, and we will see you in class.